I think this is a great way to build on everything we've been doing today. So pretty excited about this. I'm not traditional, so I'm not going to be doing this the traditional way, okay? So first we're going to start off with something I made up. It is kind of like Family Feud meets, I don't even know, like personal things. So instead of answering what you think is the most popular, I want you to say what applies to you, okay? So initially I was gonna have you two do it, but I think the whole room could probably do this. So I'm gonna ask a question. If the answer is yes for you, stand up, all right? Sound good? All right. Are you left-handed? I'm standing up as well. Woo! All right. Not to point out that we're better than everybody else, but as it relates to entrepreneurs, there are, left-handed people are unique. There are less of us than everyone else. And there's a correlation between the left side of the left hand, right side of the brain, things like that. But famous ones to note are Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Oprah Winfrey. Fun facts about entrepreneurs. So, all right, is answer yes? Please stand up. Do you set your own schedule? Oh, okay. That would make sense because 90% of people who are self-employed have no desire whatsoever to go back to a real job. Once you get a taste of the impact and the freedom you can have, you stay that way. All right, so are any members of your family involved in your business? Stand up if the answer is yes. I was gonna say, come on. Breeze up probably. So 1 in 5 entrepreneurs own or manage a business with family members. I don't know if that's a good stat or a bad stat. I didn't say successfully, I just said it's a fact, okay? The next would be, are you a rule breaker? Yeah, I'm up to rule breakers. Breaking rules is a characteristic that's shared by a lot of entrepreneurs. Breaking rules doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's leaning into your uniqueness. So every invention, you think about it, when something is brand new, it's brand new because someone thought differently about it. So they thought it could be done differently. It should be done differently for a particular reason. Why? Mark Zuckerberg in particular is known for saying move fast and break things. I'll leave it at that. I could lean into that for sure. I actually will, because of you telling about the murals and having impact in something that I feel is one of mine is just leaning into people and helping them feel seen and heard. And there was a woman in my building who was going through some emotional things, and I knew she liked art. And I said, do you want to come paint a wall in my home? And she was like, I've only painted a picture once. And I think it'd be fun. The guy was painted over, right? She came down, actually had her do a mural on the biggest wall of my home. It's phenomenal. And it evolved for her and what she was doing. It was healing for her. And I really had no idea what was going on, but it was just you can break things. You can always paint things back. Nothing's really permanent if you can think of things that way. That is an entrepreneurial mindset. All right, so then the final question is, do you dream of ringing the bell at NASDAQ? IPO. Ding, ding, ding. Public sale. Shares. That's what I mean.
I don't dream of
that. Okay. Some people do. It's a question I ask all of my clients is, what's your goal for this company? So 88% of self-employed professionals focus on small or integrated services. And I think that is very representative here, is that when you're saying income and impact and things like that, our generation is much more integrated in impact and whether you can see it or feel it. There's different ways about that. And to be successful doesn't mean you have to ring the bell at NASDAQ. You can tell your mom that. I'll talk to her if you need me to, okay? All right, so we're gonna I did some research on the two of you. And I have a question for each of you specifically, but I wanna kind of cast a wide net on a few general questions so that I think we can pick up and perhaps it will prompt some things out there, all right? So to the two of you, what is your purpose or superpower?
My purpose is to inspire. My superpower is, I would say, connecting. Keep it short until we die, I'm sure we'll die.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think my purpose is to build. I think my middle name is Nehemiah, and I think that was purposeful. And I think superpower is through strategy, allowing individuals to see more from within themselves. Yeah.
Second question, I think you guys kind of touched on it there, but expand upon is, what changes did you make to align your professional life to your purpose and or superpower once you identified that?
I think for me, it was community. I started surrounding myself with, I can't say God really started surrounding myself with individuals who had what I needed. You know, we have two of them in this room. You have Chris with Man Up, and Chris speaks to the social emotional side for me. He has taught me that, Dre, if you really want to help individuals build, you have to be able to speak to them in a tone, understand them, be kind, you know. I think sometimes I can come from why didn't we get this done? I can be impatient. And so he spoke to that side, and I think Bree on the other end has helped me from I've kind of been an executor, but I think that I wasn't organized. And so that also allowed me from a professional standpoint to be able to have more impact in what I needed to do. So I feel like, just being surrounded by the right environment, as we've been talking about all today.
Yeah, I think me and Andre have some similarities in that regard. Bree being the common denominator. But I would say for sure, changes I learned that I needed to make was, as a creator, as an artist or entrepreneur, you can get so narrowly focused on certain things, or you lose perspective or insights that other people can provide. So I had to kind of, break down the ego a little bit and be like, there are unique perspectives and there are different methods and operational methods that can make my business better, that I had to admit to myself that I'm not good at that. I know I don't necessarily have a lot of interest in getting better at that. And so what are my options? And I think it's understanding that there are people who have different superpowers than you that you can leverage and that you can connect with and that you can build with. And that was like the main change I think I had to make in my business was understanding other people's superpower and letting them kind of guide. Yeah.
I'm going to make a question up right here, given that you said that. So something I say to clients often is, if you had more time, what would you do with it? So having brought Bree in to do something that you perhaps weren't the greatest at or you neglected, what has that allowed you to do more of?
Really simply, like as an artist for several years, I was beating myself up because I wasn't creating. Like I was so focused on business and like figuring out how to make this a sustainable career that I was rarely creating art. And when I was, it was doing well. But that was the number one thing that for me I needed to make changes in was how do I free up more time to do the thing that I was passionate about, that I loved, that I made the decision to leave my corporate job to do. And now that I'm doing it, why am I making less of it? So that was my biggest change.
Yeah. To Chris, you mentioned it earlier, you have something unique in you, everyone does, and only you can do those certain things. So by tapping into other people to do other, you can then dive more into what you were built to do.
Yeah.
As only a CEO can probably go into a room and talk to, another CEO. The assistant cannot. So what can the assistant be doing for you? What can an accountant be doing for you? QuickBooks, you don't even need a person. Some of those sorts of things to lean into what you were created to do. Okay, all right. So impact on the world is a gigantic statement. So how do you gauge success and define a level of impact in your daily life?
Yeah. How do I gauge success? I think I gauge success off of the goal that was set. one thing that we've been really adamant about in our business and organization, everything is setting goals, clear goals, smart goals, as Bree likes to always bring that in, and I think that's how we get success. I mean, we have a goal there, and we're giving we are making it time bound, so we do want to see it happen by a certain time, and we say, hey, did we hit this goal or did we not? And if we didn't hit the goal, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's just how do we pivot? Like the word pivot has been here all day. How do we pivot to hit that in the next time frame? So I think for me, it's just setting smart goals and going after it.
For me personally, a lot of it is rooted, like I said, like I feel like my purpose is to inspire, but also connecting with people, connecting to community. And so that's like a lot of times how I define success for me is thinking about how the art, like knowing I'm only one person, I can only create so much art. How do you make it more accessible? Like how do you get it in the hands of the youth? And like how do you free the youth's mind for them to be inspired for the future? I'm thinking a lot about how to, again, take a mural. Can that mural be transformed into a print that's then affordable for schools to buy and put it in their spaces for kids to see? Can that print be repurposed into another merchandise item that someone can afford to put in their home? So I think that's like a huge point for me and how I'm trying to measure success is how can my art reach more people that I'm aiming to inspire. I think spaces like museums, they're not always accessible for everybody. I didn't grow up going to museums. I know a lot of youth. I took a group of students to Expo Chicago just yesterday, and half the group was their first time ever seeing art in a museum setting. And so knowing that, I think my goal is always like, how do you get more people inspired by the arts? Yeah.
I want to highlight that both of you mentioned what I would consider small successes along the way to what you were highlighted as your big one. So I'd like to use the word progress over perfection or over transformation, because progress means you're moving at least forward incrementally, the atomic habit, 1% every day sort of thing. But in your example there with taking your art into a different type of medium, by you getting it into a new medium, that is a success. Like you're putting yourself in a position then to sell it. So it's not necessarily defined by the sale of that. It's that you took the effort and got it into that space to then allow it to be successful. And even for SMART goals, like it is a painful exercise doing SMART goals. But to do it is a valuable thing. You think about things that you often probably avoid. And it makes you reflect in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. So even doing those exercises along the way is success, I like to think of. One final question to the two of you. So before we do individual ones, so if you could share one, what I would call fun fact about that you learned after becoming a professional person who's seeking purpose. So example would be, don't forget about your quarterly taxes. They will get you. That's my tip. They'll get you in the end, okay?
I wouldn't know where to start. There's so many things that I've learned like on this journey of being an entrepreneur. Is you have to do so many things. Other artists in the room, they could tell you, you do probably 90% of your role and your job is doing things that is not your role. Does that make sense? It's like, okay, I learned how the process of making prints. I learned how to start developing a website early on. I learned how to, get better at typing emails, responding to emails. That one is tough. There's just a lot of day-to-day functions that I would say that I learned either had to improve or had to learn how to delegate in order to have a successful artist career.
Yeah, I think mine would have to be, it's kind of like a few different steps within one. Number one, determine, we keep talking about these goals, and impact, is determine ultimately what you want to be remembered for. I think that's huge, and I had to sit with that a long time, because I was like, when I was first pivoting into entrepreneurship, it was just make enough money to live, but then it was like, oh, just make a lot of money. But it was like, wait, what's the purpose behind that? you know? And so then it was like, wait a minute, I need to add some purpose behind this and have some impact to it. And so for me, it was a shift of how do when I leave this earth, when we were talking about, I don't know why we were talking about funerals yesterday, but Krista, we were talking about funerals yesterday, about what people will do at our funeral. And essentially what I think about though is like, what are people going to say about me? Like we always know we can't take it with us, you know? And so I think for me, it's like having that goal set, like again, it's just all about goal and what I want to be remembered for, having that impact, and then finding a way to measure that within my business. And that goes back to like our mission-based, the whole pivot. Trust me, and you know, Dwight knows this too, working with different brands. There's not a lot of money working with nonprofits, working with, you know, mission-based businesses a lot of times. You know, usually the corporations hold all the money, but I made that pivot to say, hey, I want to impact the people that have an impact on people. And so we started working with individuals that were in the community that are trying to do the work that is needed. And so I forgot the question now, but I think I answered. Oh, the fun fact. Oh yeah, taxes. Oh yeah, like something that's teach people. I mean, I think it would just be to identify, you know, that identify that thing within your business that you need to measure, and just measure it. I think that's just I don't really have. I don't know if that's a fun fact. Is that
Well, actually, I want to know more then. So if you're a money man, if you're not measuring your money, what's something else that when you look back at the end of the year to see if you were successful, what's something else that you are tracking that gauges your success?
Yeah. Oh, well, so the impact doesn't necessarily tie to money, but I would say if you want to track, you know, the amount of people, I mean, it could be a lot of things. It can be like reviews. It depends on the business and you know.
About yours.
Oh, about mine personally. Oh, okay. I think we like to track the amount of brands that we get to work with, you know, and the individuals that, I guess, in a sense, essentially, like reviews, individuals that can speak about the impact that we had on them, you know? Like, for example, with our church, we like to measure the amount of new attendees that they had, you know? And then we like to measure with some of our nonprofits, you know, how many people, like we had a mission last year to do, get volunteers. And so we were able to measure, okay, hey, this many volunteers came, which had this kind of impact on the organization. Of course, it usually leads back to a financial thing, but in the interim, that's kind of what we like to look at, so. Yeah.
I think if you enter into something with a question, finding an answer is also a success.
Yeah.
You know, or something at the end of the year. Where are all these people coming from? You know, how did they get here? Trying to evaluate, is it the fact that you're on the right corner, or people are hearing from somebody else? If that's a data point on your website, things like that. Asking questions and finding answers, I think is a successful thing. So.
Yeah.
All right, so these are specifically one question to each of you. All right, so we'll start with you, Andre. So,
okay.
You are an independent consultant, AKA contract, freelance, 1099 sort of thing. You transition between companies frequently is what I saw, sometimes as often as 3 months. You're working with different clients. So being a 1099 isn't for the faint of heart. And I would say that God gifted you that patience, I would imagine, and confidence to sustain yourself in going out on your own and not doing the W-2 path. What advice would you give to someone who finds that they have those similar gifts, the ability to work with different groups and move easily between them, but is nervous about stepping out of the secure role of a salary and benefit package?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say really build a foundation on one thing. You know, we were talking about this yesterday. Something that you, even as a 1099, even as a contractor, as you own your business, that you know that you can somewhat fall back on. And what that is ultimately like certain skills. I was just say, you know, skills and certifications. I think why I don't have fear is because I really look at the market and I look for where demand is. You know, and I think a lot of times individuals may jump into industry, and I don't want to use art. I don't want to use art in this moment, but they may jump into an industry like that and really not have a plan, you know, at all. And I think that sometimes it's like, well, how are you going to make money? The question my mom and dad used to always ask me, well, how are you going to make money? You know? And so I think for me, I leaned into really developing a skill set that I could take to multiple companies, multiple businesses. And what Bree helped me with was ultimately building a business plan. You know, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. They kind of jump out and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start selling t-shirts and hoodies and this and that. And it's like, where's the real business plan? What is this actually tied to? You know, and they don't get connected with through partnerships with corporations and things like that. And so for me now with our business, the reason why you see a lot, I'm guessing you went to LinkedIn. The reason why you see a lot of those different brands that the agency works with is because we work with the agency that finds us all of those contracts. So I don't have to go find the contracts anymore. They bring us contracts. And so that was our foundation, is hey, let's work with the agency that's going to keep us employed. And so I think that as you do go out, no matter what your business is, find that connection, that partnership, that's something that you can keep sourcing money through. Get on people's, we learn through Man Up, get on somebody's budget line. If you're an organization or if you're a brand, these brands have, money every year they dedicate to certain spaces, whether they give it or whether they, are just paying you for your services. So I think that's the key that has allowed me to stay away from fear of going out into the field.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I hate the word sales. I love the word relationships and building that, because relationships is human to human, it's not transactional. And that's what, once you connect with someone and show your value, a relationship is going to keep them coming back and forth. You were speaking about that, people who want more of your art, that you are more loyal to a human and what they have to assist you in doing things better and being more successful. So thinking about your business as relationships with humans and groups versus just sales or things like that is what will, I think, be successful.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Dwight. So yes, I did use LinkedIn. Your biography, I saw that you did a little quote to the ideal team player, I think, from Patrick Leone. You had the 3 H's on there. Oh, okay. On your, was that right?
Yeah,
that's okay. Right. It's one of my favorite books. But I saw that on there, and it then I thought tied well into the fact that you are a former collegiate athlete, right? And you truly were a role that was defined with X's and O's, and success was, you knew what if you were good or bad. It was pretty cut and dry. There wasn't. You are now in the world of art and entrepreneurship. How do you define success for yourself and continue to keep yourself motivated as a team of one when you were something very different?
Well, to get to that last point, I'm surely not a team of one any longer. And that was again, going back to things that I knew I had to make changes in my business to be able to sustain. But the reason I'm not a team of one, and the reason I feel very proud about that and excited, is that means we're growing. The other part of it is that the thing I'm most proud of is that I get to wake up every single day and do something that I love, right? I think it's a privilege, it's a blessing, and I remain inspired by that simple fact, is that another day, my business survived, and I am creating. And I'm making a living doing this thing that I'm so passionate about, that I think can move people, that I think can change lives and inspire young people. So, that'll be my answer.
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Please.
So when you went from a giant football team to an individual, you were a team of one for a while.
Fair, yes.
How did you handle that? Because every entrepreneur, you do start on your own. So some things that.
I think I handled that through. So the thing about being on a team, especially as large as a football team, right? There's so many different functions. There's so many different roles. You have to understand everyone's in order to be successful as a team. I think what I learned when I first became a team of one is then I was looking at the community as my team. I was leveraging relationships. I was understanding what the community's needs were. I was stepping into spaces where I could have impact. And so my team, although I wasn't now the individual, I still felt like there were coaches in different spaces, or I was leveraging opportunities that I had at Kraft Heinz in this corporate space, to where it's okay, now I'm taking this business model and applying it to art and somehow making that work. So I think it's really difficult to be that team of one for a period of time until you start to trust in others that are around you, that you might be able to reach out to, or that you might be able to connect with, learn from, and apply maybe what they're doing in a completely different industry to yours. And that gets back to my point on POD, point of differentiation, is when you can start to think that way and like change the mindset of art has to look like this, you can stand out, you can be unique, and you can start to leverage successes that you've seen elsewhere into your now solo journey.
Mm-hmm. There was first Uber, there was second Lyft. There was space for more, and the point of differentiation allows us, everyone, to continue to grow into spaces and just like to be unique in that. There is likely, if you feel a need for what you're doing, there's likely other people who are going to feel the same need in that.
For sure.
So I'm going to pause and say any questions. Ooh, yeah. We'll start with Kenyatta.
Thank you all for chatting today. I really enjoyed this. My question is around work-life balance, right? So I came from the corporate world. I was working a lot of hours in my last job, and so kind of merging into this new frontier of building my own, and I'm really excited about it. But I had this question in the back of my mind where I'm like, what is the real work-life balance going to look like so that I don't fall back into the same patterns that I had before, where I maybe wasn't taking the best care of myself, et cetera. And so, like, what is that like for you all? What have you learned? And any tips you can give someone who's about to embark on that journey, and how to really keep the personal life still prioritized while building and putting in grind hours for the future?
Yeah, I'll speak to that really quickly. I mean, work-life balance is, I think it's a difficult thing to grasp, right? Especially when you're working on something you're passionate about. When you're working on your passion, you almost forget that you're still working, like, and you're still not taken care of. Like, for a long time when I was working corporate and started working on my art passion with the hopes of leaving, I was the most unhealthy I've ever been in my life. Part of the reason my why for leaving when I did was because I recognized that I'm like, brother, you're gonna die early at this pace, right? Like, I wasn't well. People around me could see I walked around with bags under my eyes. I was not walking. I was walking dead, basically. I would go to work. I had very terrible habits. I wouldn't sleep, didn't eat half the time, all because I was just so passionate about this thing. So I was like, if you're that passionate about it, believe in yourself enough to take a deep dive into that journey, give it a try, and while you're doing that, go to sleep and have a meal. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, I would say everything, it kind of goes back to that quote that I put up there. It kind of falls back on your training. And I think routines are everything. I mean, it really depends on the level of success you want to reach. The real answer is that really good entrepreneurs and individuals that want to be great do not have work-life balance. You have to put time into your craft. And that's not the answer everybody wants to say. That's not the mental health answer. This is the real answer, though. When you want to be great, one person I love was Kobe. He talked about greatness. And so you have to know the level of success that you want. But when you want to be great, you want to dominate, you want to be disruptive in the industry, I can't go hang out with my friends and work and get 10 hours sleep. It's just not possible. If you look at life, it's not possible. And so I think you have to determine how successful you want to be. But if you're just talking about a pivot, I think you can set up a routine. And Chris and BJ and all, well, I don't know if I knew BJ back then, but I knew Chris. And I used to work for a company. I get off at 5 to 10, Monday through Thursday. I was at Bradco, St. Louis Panerial, I think you all call it that, every single day for 2 years straight before I pivoted. But I wasn't burnt out because I had a routine. I said, you know what? I'm going to work. I'm working my 8 to 5. I'm going to work 5 to 10 on my business, and then I'm going to go to sleep, wake up at 6, work out, and do the same thing over and over again. So discipline was everything, and there was some sacrifices. But before I made that decision, I went to my family and said, hey, life's going to look different for me for the next 2 years, but I'm doing this because I love you all. And so if people in your life talk about that environment thing again, they know your why you're doing it, they should be there to support you. And then like, okay, they know Friday, Saturday, Sunday, let's hang out, let's plan events, let's do this and that. But Monday through Thursday, I'm locked in because we talk about that generational wealth, that legacy, that's what I'm trying to create.
I'm going to highlight what he said there at the end is that you can not have a work-life balance, but also set expectations for others is big, and for yourself. So I'm gonna be unavailable. When you start getting different clients, if Tuesday, Thursday is one's the other, here's what that looks like. I will only respond to email within 24 hours. Like, you're gonna have to do that. I think balancing other people's expectations is I would say much harder than even the work-life balance of my own, because I find myself, because I haven't done that well, I then lose control of my own life and my work-life balance, and I'm trying to make up for it. So if I help myself by setting those expectations for them, I can then care for myself well.
Yeah.
Or at least feel better about the decisions I'm making.
Dwight, you spoke about brand slightly during your presentation. And brand is something I focus on heavily. But what I was curious about was, from the two different perspectives here, from the natural creative versus the natural executor, or kind of what it seems to be, along with the visionaries. What would you say, or how big of an impact has brand been on the level of success that you've been able to create for yourself in your respective industries?
And when you say brand, are you talking about personal brand or external brands that working with?
Can you first define for me what you think like a brand is, or what brand is, and then answer the question based on that?
Truly,
good.
for sure. Did you want to define that, or?
Oh, no.
Okay.
You're talking Dwight, right?
Oh, okay.
One and the other, that would be great.
Cool. Really quickly, I mean, brand, truly in the simplest form is how you identify. It's actually not how you identify. It's actually how others perceive you, right? So you can identify as something and think that's your brand, but your brand is really what everyone else sees. And I think, I'm gonna keep that part simple. And then the second part of your question is, well,
How has it impacted the level of success that you're at now in your industry? We'll just leave it at that.
yeah, I think in terms of how it's impacted success is my brand eventually became believable, right? Like, it's like, okay, like, you practice art, you connect with community, you are a creative, you work with brands. And so over time, the more and more you're consistent in doing those things, others start to believe your brand, and having a believable brand is everything. That's what will fuel business. And I think, was it Chris that said it earlier? I believe that leaning into something 100% shows that you can be believable. If you're like half doing things, it's not likely that people are going to have an understanding or even be willing to lean in to you, your personal brand, or the larger brand that you're building.
Yeah. I mean, Dwight kind of said it, yeah. Nothing really more to say from that. But I'll give a definition which is really similar to his. It's that gut feeling individuals have when they interact with your business, you know? And I think that's where you want people to always have, like, if I say some different brands, like,
Apple or PC.
like Apple or PC. You know, you think about, you know, or Chick-fil-A. Like, what's that feeling? You think, customer service. You think, you know, versus, you know, I don't know. I don't really eat like Wendy's or something like that. But Wendy's is pretty good too, right? I don't know. I don't eat that stuff, so I don't know. But yeah, Wendy.
I would actually say, just to underscore the both of you, is that brand is like the feeling that people get when they think or see you, and brand is free. Marketing costs money, so you could build a company with your brand based upon referrals and people talking about what you have done, what you do, things like that, without having to even do marketing, because your brand has that much more impact, because your brand is that feeling,
Yeah.
good or bad, kind of thing.
Very true. Yeah. Love that.
In the back?
I got a question for you, Andre. What
Yeah.
was the mindset shift that had to happen for you to feel comfortable delegating?
Oh, just the mindset. Yeah, the mindset shift was, you know, it's like a slingshot. I had to go back to go forward. You know, there was a time, you know, that I was like literally all the money that I was making was going out to my team. You know, like Shane's here, he's a part of our team, awesome copywriter. Bree's here, and we had web developers and things like that. I was at zero. Like, I had to I was cutting grass. I was doing all type of stuff. You don't even know. I didn't tell nobody I was doing. I'm going to the gym for 3 hours. Like, I was doing, but I needed to sustain. But I had to humble myself to say, you know what? You got to take it back because you need these people. And so I think the mindset shift was one, I had to humble myself and go down, take a pay cuts, things like that. But then two is that I had to delegate. And I think that's the big word. Like, I'm telling you all, across businesses, you have to delegate. I mean, Dwight has mentioned it multiple times how he grew. He started to bring people in and he delegated tasks, that he wasn't as great at. And I realized that, like, Bree is better at this, Shane is better at this, individuals are better at this than me. Why not let their light shine so that we all can shine? And so I think that was the biggest mindset shift. And I'm very practical. So if you all are in your businesses right now and you're trying to figure out how do I delegate, where do I go? I started with Facebook and I got on to, it's a group called like the VA Philippines. And literally there's a whole bunch of individuals that do so many tasks from like email marketing, communication. I have a girl right now who is a beast. And this girl, she sources clients for us. She helps me with my real estate project. She does everything. And, gratefully, these individuals are at a very lower rate because of where they live. You're able to, just pay a little to nothing for their services, and they do an amazing job and they work really hard. And so if I was you all, I would definitely go on Facebook, look up the VA for Philippines, and identify in your business what's going to have the most amount of impact for your future success, because of course, as a strategist, my clients were hiring me for that. So I couldn't really delegate that, but I could delegate emails and communications and other things. So that's what catapulted us into a lot more success is when I took a step back, delegated, and then that allowed me to do what I do best and bring in more sales for our agency. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
You have to have, right? And one thing you just said was when you delegated, you knew that these people were better at these things than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I could use you and I for example. All the things I got my hands on, but I don't mind allowing you to do all the marketing because I know you're better at that than me. Now, and in the 100, I can kind of put people in spaces that I know they do it, but I still find myself doing a bulk of work because I don't know who else I can trust with those pieces of things.
Mm-hmm.
Better than I trust myself. So, in the beginning of the mompreneur or what you were doing back at that time, what was the process of? Okay, you went to the Facebook thing, but there was still a process of are they actually good at what they're saying they do? So what was that process? And agreeing to pay somebody for something you know you can just do yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so that it kind of leans to, I'll keep it simple, like SOPs. So we kind of started setting up like standard operating procedures for those who know what that is. We started setting that up for everyone. Like we have some individuals, even on our team right now, who like he wants to be a copywriter. He wants to do all these things. And we're like, okay, well, guess what? We're going to give you a project. Like Shane's our lead copywriter. You're going to work with him and we're going to train you. Or we're going to see, like what you can do. Thankfully, those individuals are at a lower rate. So it allows us to have like dollars there for that. So I would say if it's a money struggle right now, then you got to bring that person up under your wing and you got to allow them to shadow you and train you and train them. But if it's somebody that's outright just like, no, they can't do it for free, like, you're going to have to pay them, then you want to be able to find that money or really find the money elsewhere to be able to pay them. It's like when a job hires you, they don't know if you're going to be able to do the job or not, but they're paying for those training hours and things like that. And so I would say number one, try to see if you can train for free, and then they'll, you know that they learn from you. Or two, you might have to find those dollars elsewhere.